question is, how did we meet? How did we meet here? Would you like to take it here?
Well, I guess it was when I went to Mutual the first time.
Where did you live?
On 17th Street,
Idaho Falls? That's when we first met. I guess really, she was born in Salt Lake City. I was born in Provo, but I moved to Idaho when I was just a little guy, you know. I was 5 years old when I moved to Idaho. Going back quite a ways. That's how we met.
And I was, how old? 15, 16.
15, she moved to Idaho.
15.
So you can see there's a period of time that I lived here in Idaho somewhat longer than she did.
Yeah.
But I guess when we met was at Mutual. In those days, Mutual they had on a weeknight. And
It's a Tuesday night.
It was a Tuesday night. Do you remember that?
No, Mutual was always on Tuesday night.
Depends on what ward you were in here.
It was a Tuesday night.
A Tuesday night, okay. Well.
And it was right after I moved to Idaho Falls. And I found out when Mutual was, and I went to Mutual.
What was it? Actually, I really didn't live in this ward. I had lived on West 19th Street when I was quite young. And my father had bought some property out on the west side. So actually, that's where I lived, was out on the west side. But I just hang around with my old crowd, which meant that we were in the same ward.
Except that the wards had just been divided. And so most of your friends weren't even members of that ward. There were just a couple of them that were.
Well, they're all crazy people anyway, isn't it?
Anyway, he came to visit that ward. And they introduced me as being new in the opening exercises. And as we were leaving opening exercises, he came up to me and he said, "What are you, a sophomore?" And
Good start, huh? Huh?
And it insulted me because I wasn't a sophomore, I was a junior. And to be called a sophomore,
Her age is really a sophomore.
that's beside the point. Anyway, so he insulted me. I felt very insulted. But we went down.
We really start out with a bang.
We went, for our class period that night, they had an activity. And they had a social and kind of a dance. They were teaching dancing.
Really?
And we were down in the cultural hall, which was downstairs. Do you remember? Or it was a...
Well, I don't remember a cultural hall. I remember downstairs, and I remember dancing. Was you there?
No, I was standing at the piano.
Oh.
Anyway.
You got to realize that I'm at the age now when Alzheimer's comes in real readily, real fast.
So he doesn't remember anything? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't remember all things.
Oh. But you do remember that we were with a group of your friends, and one of them was Phil Hansen.
Oh, yeah.
And one of them was Dwayne Jenkins.
Yeah, Dwayne Jenkins.
And none of your girlfriends were there, though.
None of my girlfriends?
None of your girlfriends.
Oh, well, I didn't have any.
Oh. Anyway, so these guys decided that they wanted to ask me to a dance. And they flipped a coin. Phil Hansen and then Dave flipped a coin to see which one would ask me to the dance. And you won. Or you got the flip of the coin on me.
Well, now that's debatable whether
I said you got the flip of the coin. Anyway, you asked me to the dance. Do you remember
right.
what dance it was?
The Demo dance.
And what was it called?
It's called the Sweetheart Prom.
That's right.
Yeah. The only thing is, my version, that I didn't ask you at the mutual. It was at a high school get-together.
It was the first night.
Anyway,
It was the first.
that really
It was
don't
the first
matter.
night we met, honey.
Was it?
Yes. It was the first night we met. You asked me to go to that dance. Well, anyway, that dance was a DMLA dance at the Mason Hall.
Masonic Hall.
Masonic Hall. And they had a promenade, and they had the couples all marched down and around and then through this arch. When they got through the arch, they were supposed to kiss their dates. So that was our first date, and then, so I kissed him on our first date. Because it was in front of everybody and in that band. Anyway.
I knew what I was doing.
And I don't know whether it was before the dance, I think it was, that he decided that he wanted to get to know me better. So he got a friend to pose as our, what we call home teachers now. They weren't called that then, they were called ward teachers. And he got his friend to pose as our ward teachers, and they came to introduce themselves and welcome us into the ward as a family.
You'd have to understand, though, this partner of mine, his name was Russ Baum. Now, in all due respect to Russ, he was a very, very shy fellow. And he says, "You want me to go with you?" But I talked him into it, and he was just a bundle of nerves. He was so...
Well, you really can't blame him. Here, neither one of them were a member of our ward, and yet they were posing as ward teachers to come and welcome a new family into the ward. Now, you really can't blame Russ for being a little nervous.
Well, I was crazy. You. Anyway, I was brave enough to go up and knock on the door. And who should answer the door? Blake's mother. And she smiled at me. She says, "Come on in." We did.
And they
And we
visited.
got acquainted, and I think Blake's mother could see through me right that fast.
But she never let on, did she?
I think she was kind of cute about it.
Anyway, so that's the way he came and visited our house. So it was a whole bunch of deception.
I would never
Deceive. But anyway, that was in
All fair
November.
in love and war, you know.
That was in November of 1946. And by February of 1947, on Valentine's Day, the day before, or 12 weeks before I turned 16, he asked me to marry him.
Isn't that crazy?
So.
Now listen, all you grandchildren.
Well, they told us we'd never make it, and here we are at 50 years. I think we did pretty good.
Yeah, I think we did too.
Of course, I was a very stubborn woman.
I think, well, that's true to that.
I wasn't going to let anybody tell me that it was going to fail. Huh. Including you.
Well, I didn't offer any failures.
No.
No, we did fall in love. And I think the biggest problem was that we realized that we probably have to grow up with our children, especially me. thanks to you, this sweet lady here, she kept it together.
I taught him a lot, huh?
Yeah.
In our Sunday school class last week, the Sunday school teacher said, David, how long have you been married? And he said, 50 years. And he turned to me and he says, Glade, has you learned anything? And I said, oh yeah. But we were engaged for a long time. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, we met in 46, but it was 48 before we were married. So it was a while. Of course, we were both young. We were married, of course, June 8th, 1948. That's after she graduated from high school. I graduated in 1947. I didn't go to school because I
College.
loved college.
Grant wanted him to really bad.
My brother Grant says, oh, he says, let's go up to the university back home. He says, we'll teach you things there.
He wanted him to join the fraternity up there. And he had him all set up. And Grant gave us a bad time.
Yeah,
really gave us
I
a
think
bad
he was
time.
trying to kind of put away things because we were too young. We had lots of people that said, no, they can't last. They're too young. Just children. Can't last.
And we were.
Yeah, it's been 50 years, so they're still trying. We might make it yet. We try real hard.
Make what?
A successful marriage, dear.
I had to ask.
She had.
How are you kissing? Shoot. Anyway, we worked at it. We worked at it.
Now, do you want us to do a song and dance?
That's what I remember best. Dance song and dance. Okay, little soft shoe.
What?
Okay.
You're kidding me.
You did you my bare feet
I can't
up?
get out of the chair now. Yeah, that was a day.
Oh, we all know better. We all know better.
You're not that old yet. Pretty soon.
Oh, sorry. There. Big jump there.
We had
Start over again.
okay, when we were married, we were married in the Salt Lake Temple, and then we had our reception at Ivan's Ward.
Salt
And
Lake
that's
City.
that's in Salt Lake City, and it's, let's see, it would be about second east, and about 20,
South, you're talking about?
no, it was about 20th south.
20th South?
It's close in there. Anyway, the Alta Motel was on the corner of State Street and in the street, whatever the name of the street is now, was the south. No. But anyway, Kay was our best man. And they, a whole bunch of David's brothers and some of my friends and anyway, they decided that they wanted to chivalry us. And Kay, being our best man, was protecting us. And so
You did a good job.
we had this, was it our little coupe or was it his?
Well, what we did is I took our car,
And put it in
put
the
it in
motel.
the motel, had a kind of a...
Garage, covered garage.
Well, yeah, kind of garage. A nice
Except it
better
didn't
word.
have a door on it.
Yeah, just
Almost like a carport.
yeah, carport.
And
probably better
it was
word.
right in the corner of the motel. It was the back of the motel, and it was right in the back corner, in the southeast corner of the motel. And that little motel is still there. And,
It's been raided several times.
yeah, but it's still there. Anyway,
An old place now.
Kay was trying to get us out so that we could get to the motel. And everybody had the two exits
Locked off.
blocked off, so we were stuck in the middle of that driveway and couldn't get anywhere. But I had a little hat. Brides always wore hats. And I had a couple of other things, and we stuck them in the back of the window, and it looked like somebody was in the car. And then David and I got out of the car and snuck out and walked over to the motel and left the cars all there, and everybody.
It's only about a half a block.
Yeah, it wasn't very far, not a block and a half from the Ivan's Ward, and so we got away without being chivalry.
Yeah.
But then when we went back to Idaho Falls and had an open house, we had an open house in David's mom and dad had this open house in their home. And the kids decided, our friends up in Idaho Falls decided that they were going to chivalry us, and so they
Gonna
got
take
us
us
in the
around
car.
in the car, and they're gonna honk the horns, you know, just married, and make all kinds of funny noises and everything. As we were going down the street, we walked past this, and there's a lady.
Well, before that, though, the policeman stopped us.
Policeman's doing
Mm-hmm. Policeman stopped us and told us not to make so much noise,
it? Oh.
that we were disturbing the peace, and they told us not to do that anymore. So we went up and around the First Ward
Yeah,
building.
remember that?
And it was when we were going around the First Ward building that this woman,
Yeah, this lady come along, she looked at us, and she reached down to the ground, picked up a rock, threw it at us.
she threw rocks at us as we were going by. Being
Uh-oh.
chivalry that hit the car. A couple of the rocks
And
hit
the
the
side,
car.
didn't hit the window, it hit the side.
Anyway, we thought that was kind of interesting, because this woman, I guess.
Somebody must have chilled her, I guess. I don't know.
She didn't like that at all, did she?
No.
So we had an interesting, and if the policeman, when he stopped us, had known that we'd been married for a whole week,
He probably
he'd
arrested.
have probably given us a ticket, but he didn't know that, so we got away with that. Anyway, it was fun.
Were you gonna say something else too? Is
No,
it?
that was mainly it, the two receptions.
Oh,
But we didn't have any pictures taken at either one. Isn't that funny that they wouldn't take any? I mean, it was just, we
nobody.
just didn't even think
didn't
about it.
Plan the pictures.
Yeah, so we didn't have any
We
pictures.
don't have
taken.
any proof of it in our
Well, we
marriage
have a
license.
marriage license.
Except the picture in the paper, you got a picture in the paper.
Yeah, well, that was the only picture. So, anyway, that was kind of an interesting time. We had fun.
Great days.
I wouldn't want to go back over it though.
No. Once is enough.
Anyway, that's how the wedding and stuff went. And I know I received my diamond on David's graduation night. He gave me a diamond ring on his graduation, so I had a diamond for a year before I got married. That was at the commencement dance.
It only took 5 years to pay it off.
Well, that's what most kids do. That's what most kids do, is take a while.
Our first indebtedness, and we've been in debt ever since.
Mhm.
That's because we keep having kids.
We kept having kids, they've stopped now. At least for a while.
Okay.
That's it. Okay, that first year of our marriage was quite an eventful time. David was working for his dad up in the timber.
Timber!
So, let's see. In, I guess off and on, we were up there the whole summer, weren't we? But-
If you've ever been to Jackson Hole, you've gone through Idaho, you've passed the Palisade Dam, if you look over across that water, the lake there, the man-made lake now, at one time, that was just a river that went through there. And
It was a
there's-
beautiful canyon.
We clear cutted that area, got that timber out there so they could build that dam. So that's where all these things, most of them.
Well, the first one happened when,
When I hit you on the head though.
yeah, that was the first one. And that was up in, above
That was
Ashton.
above Ashton, that's true.
And it was on the way to Cave Falls, which is on the border of Wyoming and Idaho. And David's uncle had a ranch up there, and it was a boys' ranch. And so we stayed at the boys' ranch, and then we'd go out into the timber and cut timber. And Jerry and I had a contest to see who could peel the most logs, and in a day. And so David's dad and Dave cut the trees down, and then David would cut the branches off of the
Yeah, my father did
trees.
most of the cutting down of the trees.
Yeah.
And I'd follow him up with an axe, and I would cut off all the limbs on the tree. And then the
Kids like me and Jerry would go and peel bark off of the trees. And Jerry and I were in a real race, and I was on the tree that would have caught me up with him. And so I was hurrying, trying to get that tree peeled quickly, and he was still cutting the limbs off of it. And I got up really almost right behind him, and he hit this limb, this little limb. It wasn't very big, but it was a dead one, and it bounced off of the limb and came back up and hit me in the head, and it split my head open. It didn't knock me out, it didn't knock me down, it just split my head open. And David's dad said, "You've killed her, you've killed her."
No, I didn't.
I was feeling bad for him, and anyway, they
You
took
gotta
me.
understand, she talked about a goose egg, that thing stuck out that far.
It was a good. It wasn't the axe that split it open. It was the swelling, and it just split it open. And
Blood was going down on all his face.
and they took me down to the doctor, which took about 45 minutes to get from the ranch down to
Don't think it's
half hour. Anyway, down to Ashton, and we went up to this doctor, and he was upstairs in one of the little office buildings on the main street of Ashton, Idaho. And I walked into the office, and they said, "What on earth happened to you?" And I said, "My husband hit me in the head with an axe." So anyway, they sewed it up, and next few days I had this bandage on my forehead, and both eyes were black, clear down to my cheek. My nose was black. Anyway, and we went to a dance that Saturday night.
It was
a steak dance.
It was a steak dance. So I remember we were dancing around. What happened to you? Oh, my husband hit me over the head with an axe.
And the funny part of it was, we had been married for exactly 4 weeks to the day when I got hit. Anyway, we even had fun with that. We laughed about that for a long, long time. But
See, you're lucky any of you are here.
Then, about that same month, a little later on in that month, these friends of ours got married, and they didn't have a car to go on a honeymoon. And we had just bought this cute little
1937
DeSoto convertible.
with a rumble seat.
And it was black and had red leather seats and a little rumble seat.
Wow.
And we told them that we would take them on their honeymoon because their car broke down and they couldn't go on a honeymoon. So we told them that we'd drive our car. And so anyway, the only place for them to ride was in the rumble seat.
I don't know if you kids know what a rumble seat is, but this car was a convertible car. You know, it had a rag top, and then the rumble seat was outside, just like the trunk of the car. You pulled back, you pulled that up, and there was a seat inside of there, and they sat in that rumble seat. Well, as we were traveling down the highway, guess what?
It rained
It
so
started
hard. You can't believe how hard that rain came down. And so the kids closed the thing on them. So they drove, they went on their honeymoon in the closed rumble seat. Anyway, but we did end up having them have a honeymoon. We came down to Salt Lake.
I don't think they actually started a honeymoon until a day or so.
I'm sure they didn't. But anyway, that was fun. So then we went back up to the timber. And
This is the Palisades.
And this time we went up to Palisades. And like he said, they were clearing out all these trees because they were going to flood the whole thing. And they didn't want all the trees floating around. So anyway, they just were cutting them. And they weren't paying any attention to the way they were falling because they had to clear it all out anyway. And so the trees were all every which way, just on top of each other and the whole thing. Anyway, we stayed up there in a tent for a week at a time. And Grant was home from college for his summer leave, and Kay came up to help him.
Kay did?
Yeah. So it was Kay and Grant and you and I. No, it wasn't Kay. It had to be Jerry. Had to be Jerry. Jerry and Grant and Dave and I in that tent. And here we were up there, and I, you know, I mean, here I was 17 years old, and the people that lived in that, they had cabins up there. And when they saw me with these 3 men, they wouldn't even speak to me. They thought that something was really fishy in that situation, and they wouldn't even speak to me. So anyway, there I was living in this tent with these 3 guys, and they had a blanket that they had hanging.
That was the room divider.
That was the room divider. And I had to cook for these men.
And she couldn't cook.
And I had never cooked anything, and it was an open fire, and it's all I had for the thing was an old oven rack that went on top of these rocks. And I had to cook for these guys, and they were so grouchy. So, they were, oh, you guys were ornery as heck, because everything went wrong.
I thought I was always sweet.
Oh, you were, yeah. Anyway, was that the place that I got on the horse and the horse ran away with me?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, between that, I had never ridden a horse, and all they had was this Jack, who was a big old work plug. I mean, think about me being a little city girl and never around any of these kind of things, and all of a sudden to be thrust into these situations that I had. I mean, it was really quite a change for me, to say the least. But anyway,
After that summer, we went to work for Utah Oil Refining Company.
but I got on the back of this big old work plug and tried to ride him, and as I was riding him and not knowing how to ride a horse, my feet kept kicking him in the side, and I kept saying, whoa. And he didn't know what to do for me because I was kicking him. And the poor little thing got riding and running, and it headed for a fence, and I was headed for this fence, and I could just see myself going up over the fence, and Jerry and Ace Ward came out and stopped old Jack before it got to the fence.
Ace-o, what's there?
Ace.
Oh.
Yeah, and Ace and Jerry stopped that horse before it dumped me over the fence. And then, it was only a couple of days later that when your dad was cutting the timber up above, and I was peeling logs down below on the hill, and David had always said, don't ever look up when the tree's falling, because you'll run right into it. So he says, just run ahead. Just
run.
Find a spot and run. So there I was down below, and Dad Young yelled at me and said, run. So I tried to run, and anyway, all these trees were in the way. And I caught my leg on a little thing that came up from a little branch that was sticking up from the tree. And I ripped my leg open from the knee clear up to about here. And I fell down in all these trees. And they kind of made a little igloo type of a thing on top of me. And the tree, when Dad finally had to let go of the tree, it fell down and lit right where I had my legs caught on that branch. I could tell because the peels had gone up to that point. I had peeled the tree up to that point, and it was right across that. So anyway, after these few little events, David decided that he wouldn't stay with his dad anymore, that it was just too dangerous for me.
You want to see, you see her
Let me
hair?
zoom in here.
You can't see it.
See her hair? See? How gray it is here. That's when it started to get gray. That summer we got married.
Anyway, we went right here first.
Did you see this? That's when that started too.
So anyway, then he went to work. He went to work for Dad Clay's garage, and it was shift work. And that's where he worked when 3 of our children were born.
There's 3. You had 3 children.
Well, Kevin, see, by that time you'd left Dad Clay's and gone to Firestone, and that's when we moved to Utah. It was after we had those 3 babies and no job. Tried to, so we moved down to Utah, and he went to work for ZCMI, and we lived with Mother for about 6 weeks, and that's why I had such a hard time coming back and taking care of Mother. It's because that 6 weeks was about all I could take. But it's funny because Carl and Kathy came and lived with Mother for a while too, and I think they had a rough time with Mother. But anyway, I mean, Karen lived with Mom for a long time, and she got along with her quite well. And I know Mom tried, in fact she tried too hard, and I think that was why it was hard on Carl and Kathy. She was trying to give Kathy too much motherly advice, and it was too hard for her. Smothered her. But anyway, then the babies came along, and
We had 3 babies, in a hurry. And we couldn't figure out how come.
And then when we moved to Salt Lake, we didn't have any for the whole time we lived.
Well, we stopped drinking out of the same glass.
Then we moved back to Idaho, and then that's when Ronnie was born.
Yeah.
And then we had all of our kids in Idaho Falls.
Yeah, everyone was born in Idaho Falls. How about that? All the kids. Good old Idaho.
And most of them don't even remember it. Do you?
Some.
But anyway, so we've been here now almost as long as we lived in Idaho Falls, as a married couple. Because we spent our 25th wedding anniversary in Idaho Falls, and then it wasn't long after that till we went down here. So, just about half of our married life. And yet it seems like we spent more time in Idaho Falls than we have here, doesn't it?
Yeah, they had a lot of good friends. And of course, all of our children are there. Idaho Falls is a good place. Good place.
We
They have
enjoyed it.
cute kids too.
Yeah, and good, yeah. Good kids.
All except, let's see, which one?
You're thinking of me, aren't you, Dad?
No, I'll let you all worry about that one.
No.
No, that isn't true. My eight children, I'm proud of every one of them. They're the best.
They're all good people, and that's the most important thing. And beautiful grandchildren.
Yeah.
And great-grandchildren.
And great-grandchildren.
Anyway, so I think that's all I can think of.